Joining us for part two. We're going to get into the elemental burden index. This is brand new. You haven't seen this through Canalt. In fact, you haven't seen this on the market anywhere. It is absolutely, Suman and I like to say, the bread and butter behind some of the reporting. So Suman's going to take it away. He's going to get us started. And we just ask that everybody could mute themselves, please, so that there's not the background and the feedback. I will try to do that as well. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. There will be a question segment at the end. So we're happy to get into all of those as well.
Okay, so I'll
Oh, Suman, I see you're on mute.
You muted me too.
Oh, I'm not really excited with all my muting.
Sorry about the glitch. So my name is Suman. I am running the research side of things and just working on developing new systems, new reports for Canalt. I've been working here for the last 2.5 years. Hair analysis is kind of our bread and butter. Before joining Canalt, I had no idea what hair analysis is. So I slowly started getting into it and realized quickly that there are way too many parameters for any novice or anybody to actually quickly interpret the data, right? So I met Chris like probably a year ago, and we started talking about like what can we do to simplify what a hair analysis can say or cannot say. So that's where we started talking about just accumulating all the parameters and combining it together so that we can present it easily in a kind of condensed format for you guys to have an easier interpretation, right? So that's how this concept kind of started. And from there, our primary strategy was to accumulate all the different directions that we can go with hair analysis and then come up with the overall score. That would be your level one. And then the level two would be looking at a little bit more details that I'm going to talk about in a bit. So what it did is we combined all different important ratios. Chris took over there, basically all the ratios, all the patterns, uh, important kind of nutritional parameters and stuff. So we had compiled around 60 different parameters, and then we decided now what to do with it. So what we decided that we'll go with 5 different domains that the and then we will come up with scales from low to high in terms of your overall body burden, right? So the domains we came up with are stress and adrenal load, nutritional reserves, then toxic load, which we're calling environmental metal load, metabolic efficiency, and hormonal terrain. So then we classified all these 60 different parameters that we already talked about. That okay, these are the important things to ingest from hair analysis into these 5 different buckets. And then we slowly started collecting this data with one of our partner company who collected around 150 patients and started correlating the results. And that's how we came up with these weights. Like on a scale of 0 to 100, we thought like what would be the relative weight for stress? What would be the relative weight for nutritional reserves? So on and so forth. So with a lot of back and forth, a lot of testing with patient data, with retrospective analysis on our data, we came up with these weights. Now we have the weights, but how accurately that would correlate uh, with the real patient data, right? Meaning, let's say you are seeing a patient and this shows certain symptoms, and we do a hair analysis. We get a score of, let's say, 20 out of 25 out of 25 in stress section. Does it actually correlate with the symptoms that we're seeing? So later on, we did the validation of both, like the clinical side of things, and also under stress, we have like many parameters that Chris is going to talk about later on in this presentation. So each of the parameters we validated from literature as well. So we did a lot of work on this for quite a while. And then a lot of back and forth, sometimes lows, sometimes highs, and then we perfected it with a proper weighting of each of the parameters. And now we created a scale that, okay, from 0 to 20, there is not much of elemental load, body burden is fine. Then we go to a mild to moderate to elevated load to high. Uh, and that's how it's going to be reported. Now I'll get into a little bit on the clinical validation and literature validation. I'll just give a summary. We have a very detailed validation done on this. Uh, so on clinical side of things, basically, we collected data from 150 people, right? So from survey. Now, if these guys came and said that, okay, I'm stressed. Now I want to see whether I'm seeing the stress in my stress bucket or not. Also, they may come and say, I'm not stressed, but still I'm seeing it, which is like hidden or not reported, right? So if the not reported one and the reported one, if we combine those two, then we got really nice correlation with the data. Like what we are seeing from this model and what we are seeing from the symptom correlated quite nicely. So this is kind of the 30,000-foot view of how correlated our data, our analysis was with the clinical findings. So as you can see here, for all the buckets, our correlations were above 85%. If we combine the non-reported symptoms that we are seeing in HMA and the reported symptoms, if we don't, we still saw around 50% correlation. Like meaning, if 50 people reported stress, if we have calculated 50 people have stress, at least 25 of them actually reported stress. Now, when we accompany the unreported one, then the correlation becomes really nice. And the failures are very low. Like failure, by failure, I meant somebody said, I have stress, but we didn't see it here in our calculation. So those numbers are very low. So at that point, we became quite a bit confident that, okay, this works. So let's just do literature search and correlate with the literature that all our parameters are valid and everything is validated from the literature. So we just went to the literature, validated all the parameters that we have, uh, and just showing some numbers that we looked at, like more than 260 research publications for these indicators. So we came up with a model that will summarize these buckets for you in kind of like a one-page summary, and you can quickly go through it to use in your practice. And that's where I think the research side of things, the modeling side of things, I tried to highlight a little bit more. And Chris will take over talking about the clinical side, like how you can use this data information in your practice. So I'll let Chris take over from here, and she will just go through one, like a high band, like let's say somebody had a score of 86 out of 100. How does it look like? How you can utilize this information in your practice? Chris.
Thank you, Suman. Okay. So in practice, I mean, there's a lot of information, and if you've worked with or knew or have been working with the HMAs, you're going to know that it's not just as simple as this pattern always represents this. So the way I read this, if I'm sitting, with somebody, it's going to say, okay, the EBI is showing me 86 out of 100. So that lands in a high band. So this is what I want to show you is what does this 86, if we break down, we call these buckets when we're working with. So can I have that next slide, Simon? I don't have the controls this week, so
Yeah.
I'm go
Totally
reliant on
good.
Simon. So this is the first page. This is what we call the elemental burden index. So again, the elemental burden, it is not exclusive just to excessively high. It could be low. The burden is the overall weight potentially to the body and the body systems. So now, when we look at this, you can see that there's a high level overview. We have each of the buckets. So we have the stress, we have nutritional, and so on. And then we have our beautiful bar. We love our linear scales inside CanAlt. So we'll keep those through all of our reports. And this is your very first quick overview. This is where discernment comes in. It is no different than looking at the CanAlt first page where you see the chart and the graphing. So once we look between these, we have a real good story. And now we use that patient client file to bring it alive. When we get into each section, the second page, this is an overview. So this is the grit behind the report. You're starting to see what went into each of these buckets. So you can start to see, wow, there's a lot of cofactors. So as you're going through, or, and I'm seeing some very familiar names, you may have sat with me on a clinical overview of your client's reports in the past. And there's so many different nuances, and it feels like I'm standing there with a fire hose and you're like, oh my gosh, Chris. So what this does is you start to see the inner workings of not only my brain, however, all the research, the literature, it's coming together into these buckets. So when we have the stress load, you can start to see we're looking at not only sodium, potassium, we're starting to see how they correlate. Potentially, are we looking into the lows? Are we looking into the highs? And this is really what we want to pay attention to. So just for the next couple slides, I'm going to break down each of these buckets, not to go into detail, because again, this is not about, education. Sorry, this is not about training. This is about the education of what the report is. So in section A, right, stress and adrenal, the question is really, is the body stuck, say, in overdrive? Has it burnt through its reserves? We read that this off, say sodium, potassium, a few key ratios. Here it's showing us 12 out of 25. So that's altered. That flag means, potentially that calcium and magnesium, the calcium and phosphorus, the zinc and copper, and the parasympathetic patterns. And you're going to see that because we see the triangle, and it's bringing your attention to what you're going to see on the report. Now you're able to go, oh, and again, discern it to say, these are those stress patterns. So this is another, as you go through each report, you're going to start to really self-educate yourself at every turn. When we go into the next bucket, so nutritional reserves, it's this is the body's mineral bank. Is there enough to go around, or is it rationing just to the essentials? This here is showing 24 out of 25. So this would be into the lower state. Let's just point out that magnesium is sitting high, while selenium, iron, manganese, and phosphorus are low, plus low zinc and the calcium magnesium imbalance. So we can quickly see in an overview, these are the ones that are triggering the nutritional reserves. So when we're creating a profile, when we're creating nutritional parameters, when we're looking at supplementation, whatever it is we are doing to help that patient or client, we are utilizing it based on an additional cofactor of this report. When we go into the environmental metal load, well, these are our classic heavy metals. This is one section that, even in the hair report, and when I'm helping people go through these reports, it's, oh, wow, these heavy metals are high, so let's detox. Kind of makes me nervous a little bit, for sure. As a practitioner, you get to make that call. But the job here is telling real accumulation apart from, say, everyday exposure. So mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, aluminum, right? This one's about, and this one's showing maxed. This person has an exposure potentially at some level, and or through, you know, environmental, through, you know, nutrition. Love to say it's clean. Guess what? Not all the time, right? Again, but if we have low nutritional reserves, it allows heavy metals just to kind of plant a little bit harder inside the body, right? So this one actually flags here that mercury, lead, arsenic, and aluminum are a cofactor. So again, not to make this a training session, but inside your other buckets in the EBI or into your report, you're going to start to look at your detoxification minerals. You're going to start to look at selenium. You're going to see where iron's sitting, right? Do we have the reserves inside the report to go and push these metals, or is there something bigger that we want to address? When we go into the metabolic efficiency, section D here, this is all about energy. Who doesn't love energy? I mean, we burn through it in today's society, right? So this is the body, how it actually makes and uses it. We're going to read through cofactors and structural patterns. Full marks, you know, it's kind of like the wrong way here. So 15 out of 15, this is worth naming that calcium and magnesium excess, calcium and phosphorus, calcium, potassium interplay. We're going to have things like selenium, phosphorus, cofactors, right? These are sitting in here. And again, no different than the other factors is our metabolic efficiency. If we have a high stress load and our metabolic efficiency is drastically reduced, now you get to go, okay, well, how do I build that? And then again, we get into the nutrition, we get into potential the supplementation, not in kennel, but as a practitioner, I'm speaking to you. And from there, we get to make the adjustments that will gradually support the body instead of saying pushing it prematurely. Have you ever had a client or patient, and you give them a supplement and all of a sudden it's adverse, it revs them up, right? So these types of factors. And of course, and cannot forget, our hormonal terrain, right? So minerals sitting underneath. So the hormonal signaling, we have, of course, zinc copper relationship that you're probably very adverse to understanding. There's also a bit of a component with calcium and magnesium. There's a few other, trace cofactors. When it's a 10 out of 10, it's definitely going to be marked altered. And then it's going to, again, bring you towards those cofactors. One little nugget in here is boron. A lot of people may or may not understand that relationship with boron. So all of these minerals and the ratios and the patterns have been put in together. And like Suman said, in a very specific weighted pattern, so that when this report is generated and you have it sitting right beside the hair trace mineral, we can look at that and go, yes, this makes sense. Or, you know what? Let me dig a little bit more in that intake. Let me ask some more questions to that client or patient, and when we go into, say, that research-driven consideration, even in the next slide, after the scores, we want to look at the considerations, right? For each area, this is where it's going to read what's signaling, how it adds up, some general dietary and some cofactor themes for, even the research. So it's going to take the notes and it's going to tie them to specific flags. So now, again, you're getting the elevated, educational information to support your clinical decision. So these come from, again, literature, they're observations, they're not instructions. And so we always say there's one score, 5 sections. And again, we look at these as buckets, right? So we can quickly go and say, stress 12, nutritional, environmental, metabolic. This is how we got the 86 out of 100. This says, in these 5 areas, this is the consolidated number. So this is going, okay, potentially the body at, again, that burden level is we want to look deeper into the potential factors, whether it's not just in the bucket, but again, it goes back to that clinical file. And how we look at this in practice is really a quick summary of how it's going to go. Is we're going to start with the score for the overall level. So high means, elevated, potentially more serious, into relation to the client's file and or the symptom output. And we're going to look at these 5 areas in the scores to see what's pulling it up. Here it's looking at metals, nutrition, metabolism, then into flagged patterns for the details. And we're going to look at those heaviest areas first, rather than, going, hey, I have to fix everything all at once, right? The body, as we know in clinic, the body does not respond that quick. The body responds in a slow, calculated, timed way because the body knows what it needs to do. And then we come in and we help support it, right? And then lastly, you'll hear me say this every single time. This information is obviously for research and information purposes, right? It's going to back up judgment. It's going to back up those protocols. It doesn't replace it. So everything's drawn from published literature. It's going to be framed by observation. It's not a part of any licensed lab report. This is I call it like this really cool tool. That's not scientific. It's not as fancy as all what Simon was saying, right? But this is a fancy tool for us to have a quick overview to say, hey, you know what? How can I learn more? This is how I learn more. What connects to what? This is what connects to what. Why is this important? Because it's a quick overview that allows discernment and facilitation. And you know what that means at the end result for those clients and patients? Quick action, right? So hair analysis, we can get 9 months of protocols from one hair analysis, no problem. That's how integrated they are into our systems when we allow them to. So that is EBI. And, that is what we've been working on. This was a fluke. It did not come like this. We had just looked at the total toxic weighted, linear scale that you saw in the original report, and then it morphed into this. So between Suman and I, we're why people. We want to know why, and we want to know more of the why. And then when we discover the why, we think it ends there. It doesn't. It goes deeper into the whys. So if you have any questions on this EBI or the other report, please ask now. There's other information we do want to get into because, from last week, you've been sending me or Inquire, and thank you for all that. You've been sending us information, I love this report, or hey, can you explain this? And, I'd like to get into that after as well. But I just want to give everybody here a chance to offer feedback and or questions. And you're more than welcome to unmute and ask and or type in the chat. So as you're populating those, one of the questions we had is, will we have an ability to offer the report in milligram percentage? Because the American counterparts or the industry standard is we see hair minerals offered in mg percentages, where Canalt does the UGGs. So Suman, do you want to answer that?
I think we are also coming up. This is not the last of everything, so we are coming up with another presentation, maybe in a month or two, on our new portal. So once we get into our new system, we should be able to toggle between the UG per gram or to milligram percentage. So it will be a parameter in your practitioner profile that you can select, and then the report will be generated in that unit. So that anything else from the general question, housekeeping kind of side?
Yeah, we have some questions coming in. Also, when we get into the unit measurements as well, note that when we look at the ratios, the conversion has already been done. So if you are using, logics from, specific parameters on those ratios, and you're looking for, say, your calcium phosphorus, you're looking for that to be at 2.6 because we understand there's an expected range. However, we're just using that number because that's the core number. Then the ratios currently in, even at the measurement of the UGGs, those are still reflective. Those are accurate. So you're still looking for your 2.6. You're still looking for your, zero point 0.8, zero point 0.9 for your iron and copper. So those remain unchanged. You don't have to do math conversions on those. And if
Yeah,
somebody,
the only change you will have is on the individual elements. The ratios will stay exactly the same. The individual elements just will become 10 times smaller in absolute number. That's all that is going to happen if we toggle that change.
right.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so we
Go
have
ahead.
one more question. Will there be a guide of some sort? Yes. Now, again, we are going through changes in pretty much all our system. Once we have active, updated portal, there will be guide on how to interpret the report. There will be more learning opportunities, more training videos, and stuff like that. We are currently working on that. So maybe I can't really promise a exact timeline, but it's coming very soon. So hope that answers your question. Anything else? Okay, I see
Yeah,
somebody
we
else
do
is
have
typing.
typing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a
Yes.
recording. Yes. And
Yes.
if you didn't receive it, we can send that out too.
Yeah. We'll send it out again with the registration. Whoever registered for this presentation, or we'll send out both. We'll just put the previous link also in this one.
And again, you're more than welcome to unmute and ask your question. That's fine as well.
Nikki, that's a good question. Cost change. It's not going to be super expensive, but we are still working on it. We don't have a decision on that yet. So once we have a decision on the cost change or the price of the whole new report package, we will notify through email.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. Well, if that is the conclusion, oh, no, we've got another one. It's neat. We can see the bars of the typing. I don't know if anybody else can see. So all of a sudden and we're typing. So absolutely. So we do truly hope that, you find this interesting as well as we do. Again, we were knee deep into all of this research and these case studies. So, it's been a fun event. Will this be included with the HMA report or as a separate we have to request?
Yes, so as a standard for this update, you will receive as a practitioner report, a separate patient report, which will give the first page and a little gist, and this particular elemental burden index report. So you'll pretty much get three report when you order HMA in the new structure.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
this is not for public. This is going to be only for practitioner. And we will have some disclaimer in there. And then after that, it's completely up to you guys.
all right. Well, perfect. So outside of that, we will, within the next few days, be able to send out the replay. We will send both links for the first and the second
Yeah.
video. you have any questions, you can absolutely email inquire@canaltlabs.com. If you already have been, and like I said, I see a lot of familiar names, so that's great. You can continue with chris@canaltlabs.com. And we'll get all these questions. If you have ideas, comments, concerns, feedback, please forward them. Again, we're very open to take these to see what we could do. This is at the start. This is the start of the new Canalt reports. So we expect there's going to be changes. We expect that we're going to be able to foster and nurture these reports over time. Whether it's our IgG, whether it's, hair cortisol, however it comes about. So this is, again, the start. So, you're at the beginning stages with us. So thanks for hanging with us. And, feedback is key. Just like we know with our patients and our clients, their feedback to us it is the most valuable because they let us know what it is. If they're not communicating, we only know what's on paper. So please, just like we would practice, we want to implement that through into the lab we want that feedback. So appreciate that.
And so just one more thing to add at the very end is these are the buckets we thought is important from the lens of hair mineral analysis. Now, if you think that there are more scope to this, like we need to look at any other health concerns or wellness buckets or anything like that, we can always take that feedback and work on it in future, so that we can continually kind of grow this model over time. So this is literally a version 1, and like, we see a lot of growth potential on this model itself, in terms of what kind of information we can put through. So I thought I'll just add that okay, this is not static. This will slowly evolve over time on the basis of feedback.
Yes. The one last thing I did want to ask is a question that I have received twice is any results that are in the portal up to the time that we migrate to the new will remain in the old reporting. So they will not be reverted into this new model. So anything going forward, 100% will be in the new HMA layout.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you or talking to you, definitely getting that feedback. Outside of that, have a wonderful Tuesday, and we'll be connecting. Take care.
Bye.